All right, all right, all right. Already, we are back with another episode of Alt Nerd Obsessive. This is Mo, your host, and with me, always taking my side because he knows what's good for him, is the man H.
Yeah, sure, that's
Yeah,
why.
that's what it is.
You you know you'd be lost without me.
That's true, I would be. You know why? Because I'm an idiot. But you know what? There's two things in this world that guide me on the straight and narrow, and one of them is the friendship of my buddy here, H, and the other is the cool, crisp, clean flavor of RC Cola. I'm getting right into it. I'm right into it immediately.
Might as well.
Might as well. Cheers. We thought we'd go take a trip down memory lane today. Talk about something that means a lot to you in particular, but something
Yes,
that
absolutely.
something that is very nostalgia for me in my childhood, and that is He-Man guys, as I
Yes,
used to call them as a kid.
as we all did
I don't
as a
know.
kid.
I was gonna say I don't know anybody who grew up in our age who didn't refer to them as He-Man guys specifically. Like, first off, I don't think I even realized until like the movie came out that they were even called Masters of the Universe. I never paid attention to that. I always just called them He-Man guys.
Really, even after having some of the toys and stuff, you didn't realize that was the name of the line.
No, because I'm an idiot. We're gonna reiterate that fact that I am what you would call a moron who did not pay attention to things as a child, who turned into an adult who also does not pay attention to things. So
See, it's a shame we weren't friends back then.
you could have educated me. You could have said, "Now Mo, now little Mo, I want to tell you, these are not called He-Man guys. We call them He-Man guys, but they're actually Masters of the Universe."
Indeed. And then I would have become the basis for the well, actually
Well,
meme.
actually, it's true. Oh no! Oh, never mind. I thought I fucked up. I did not. Thank fucking goodness. So let's go back. Let's talk about our childhoods a little bit. When did you actively start collecting the toys? Because I know for me, if you're wondering what I'm doing, audience, I am filling my pod for my vape. Um, because I'm a man of healthy habits. Um, yeah, for me, like when I was a kid, like I never thought to like, I didn't care about them. Like, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, they ruled my life, but I didn't care about them.
Yeah.
They were strictly toys for me to play with.
Uh huh.
You know,
So I I honestly couldn't really tell you exactly what year I started because my earliest some of my earliest memories that I can remember
right?
are of watching the cartoon on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know I was into that early on and I must have gotten into the toys because of
Right.
that. And I do know that in Christmas of 85 or 86,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere around there, maybe even 84,
Right.
I got my Castle Grayskull, which I still actually have to
Very.
this day.
That's awesome.
So I must have started with the toys before that because that wouldn't have been the first thing that I got.
Right, right, right.
But
Yeah, it does seem weird that the first thing you'd get was a Gray Skull.
but I do know that when I got into them, they just became everything. I wanted as many as I could get.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, and anybody who's watching can see we've got the screen up. Now, this is a newer collection. This is the Classics collection that came out in the late 2000s.
Yes.
But they're fairly accurate to what the original toys kind of looked like.
Yeah.
Just imagine these just a little bit lower quality, really.
Yeah, and we can get into some of the newer stuff that's out now because um it's slightly less high quality than this line was,
Mm,
and it's a little bit closer to what the original line was like.
nice. But all I knew is that they were big, burly, muscular dudes, and they all looked really fucking cool. Because really, the character design on He-Man is what sold it for me for the most part. Like, I feel like there are two types of nerds. There are fantasy nerds and there are sci-fi nerds. And I like as much as I loved Star Trek as a kid, and I still love Star Trek. Like I've always considered
Same.
myself a fantasy nerd. Like when I play video games, I'd rather play something with magic and swords and stuff, and stuff like that. Than stuff with like photon blasters and guns and stuff. I don't want guns. I want to run up and smack somebody hard with a sword, because that's just sort of my bag, Like I loved sword and sorcery movies when I was a kid. I grew
Oh
up
yeah,
on stuff like Beastmaster and fucking Conan and you know
loved Beastmaster. It was a fucking TBS staple back
yeah,
in.
and it was a fucking banger, like it was a great fucking movie. Um like just and like the lines were very clear. It was always here's this badass heroic motherfucker going up against the most evil motherfucker you've ever seen, and that's the epitome of He-Man. That's what He-Man is. It's this badass who has these magical powers, who taking on the most evil motherfucker in the galaxy, in the form of Skeletor. Um, it just ticked all the boxes. It really did.
It did.
You know. Um,
Like even at a time, when you weren't sure what you liked and what you didn't like all the time,
right.
He-Man just managed to nail it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, for me, they were definitely toys I played with. Like I had a buddy, me and him both
Yeah.
collected He-Man toys, and we would, but his family was rich, my family was very poor, so like he had the big collection and I just had a handful of the ones that I liked. I had to be very selective about which ones I asked for because
Yeah.
I could only
Cuz
I could
cuz
only get them every now and again.
cuz you couldn't get them all no matter how much you wanted to. At least most of us couldn't.
Right.
So, we could only get them like you said every so often, so we had to be selective.
Right. I mean, and I was fortunate enough that every time I lost a Moss Man in my backyard, my parents were kind enough to buy me a new one. And like it pains me to think how many more He-Man figures I would have had as a child if I hadn't lost my Moss Man every other week. Like I don't know how the fuck, man. Like it took nothing. And if you're out there and the pain that I'm talking about,
Mhm.
that Moss Man got lost in backyard grass like that, like it was nothing.
Yeah, that was like I probably took mine outside a couple of times ever.
Yeah.
And that was why, because I did not want to lose them.
Yeah, I mean, and like most of them, I had no problem finding them again and whatever. Even the other green guys, because here, let me see if I can find Mossman on here. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Because man, like, no, that's there he
I
is.
think, yeah,
Yeah.
there he is.
So here we got Boss Man, okay? And sadly I can't make the picture bigger, but you see him here and he looks like grass, like his colors are grass green. I mean, cuz he's covered in this moss, cuz he's supposed to be here we go, a master of camouflage, you know. And he was covered in moss and everything he had was brown. And so like if you were playing near dirt, he would just blend right in. Like he really what like they designed that toy too well because he really did blend right in. It was fucking painful, you know.
And, slight aside is people always remember that the original Stinkor
Hmm.
figure down there had a smell,
Yeah.
and he did. But what a lot of people don't remember is that Mossman kind of had a smell too, whether intentional or not.
Yeah, I mean whatever they put on him made him smell a little earthy. For sure.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was intentional or not. Stinkor was definitely intentional, man. He smelled like
yeah.
a skunk. It was I was one of those kids who would sit in my room watching TV with Stinkor just up to my face, just fucking
just
sniffing
just
him,
just huffing him.
just
Yeah.
huffing him like he was some kind of like he was a sock filled with spray paint. Not that we
And
know anything about that.
I certainly don't. But
No, I really don't either.
um and I have heard from a lot of people in the uh Motu collecting groups that uh lots of the stinkers, the original stinkers from back then still smell today.
That's amazing. That's wild. We're talking 35 plus years,
Yeah.
and they still fucking stink. That's really, really cool. So, when do you think for you went from being a player of He-Man guys to a collector of He-Man guys? Actually, even more so, I want to know how much of the toys you had as a kid do you still have? Because you mentioned talking about still having your Castle Grayskull. Like, how many of
Yeah.
those toys do you still have?
So I still have probably a handful of figures. They're in a tote in my closet somewhere. Uh, I don't have them on display with
Mm-hmm.
the rest of my stuff just
Right.
because they were heavily played with and uh, they got quote unquote stored
Mm,
for several years at one point, but they were
sure.
stored very poorly and
Mm.
they ended up getting eaten by rats.
Jesus.
And so I had to throw a bunch of them away at that point, and I cleaned up the ones that I was able to rescue, but they're still not in great shape. So they're just in a tote in a closet, and maybe one day I'll dig a few of them out, a few of the nicer ones, and put them with the rest of my stuff. But that's why I won't say I've gone all in, but I've you know grabbed a bunch of pieces from several of the more recent lines
Right.
is to kind of replace what I used to have in a
Mm.
way.
I remember me.
Cause
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say because originally from the original toys, I probably ended up with about 25 or so figures,
Hmm.
maybe a few more. That's eventually over the course of however many years
Sure.
I got them. But like I said, they got put away and eaten by varmints,
Hmm.
and but but thankfully, pretty much ever since this classics line started back in like 2008
8. Yeah.
or whatever, they've been pretty steady with a bunch of different companies have released a bunch of different things.
That's the one
And
thing
I've
I will say is that Masters of the Universe has somehow managed to maintain. Like it's really wild. Like I mean, yeah, there's been a couple of shows throughout the years as well, and
Yeah,
those always do well for um for toys, but
yeah,
like even beyond that, they've just been like the nostalgia alone has just kept it going and kept it going. And it's I don't know, I think it's super impressive. Like I think it's so fucking cool that um they've managed to maintain better than 85 90% of the other toy lines that were around back when we were kids. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, really,
They
when you think about it, there's three toy lines that have managed to endure. There's He-Man, there's Transformers, and there's Ninja Turtles.
That's true.
You know, like
And
I can't think of anything else that has managed to keep going as persistently as those three have.
and all three of those kind of have the same thing in common, where regardless of you know how much time passed in between or whatever, they always found ways to bring it back and reinvent it and
Right.
you know keep it popular.
Well, here's the thing. It's really easy to maintain interest in a toy line when the figures are interesting looking, or when you can do something clever with them. That's the thing I've
Yeah,
always like that's where the Ninja Turtles really thrive is the fact that they've always managed to do something really clever with them, whether it be crossover lines with other properties and getting to
right.
do
Where they dress them up as different characters
right,
from different things. Yeah,
exactly. Like Ninja Turtles has been really good about that, because frankly, at the end of the day, how interesting is a turtle, but, you give that turtle cybernetics and, and laser guns and fancy weapons or turn them into a horror film character, which I know that wasn't an official release, but, but they did, there was the official
actually,
release.
they were. Yeah,
I was gonna say there was the official release where they turned them into like the classic, um, the classic movie monsters, right?
yeah, and
Yeah,
that was just recently. I actually have the Raphael from that line as Frankenstein. I got it for my birthday last year.
that's see that shit like that's just fucking awesome. But the He-Man ones endure because their original designs were so fucking cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, He-Man himself is not particularly interesting, but he's not really supposed to be. He's kind of supposed to be like the fucking white meat baby face, kind of milk toast tough guy. It's the rest of the crew that's interesting. I mean, look at some of these guys. Like Stratos. This dude looks fucking cool as hell. Beastman has always looked fucking awesome.
yep.
And then you get the weirder guys like fucking Manny Faces or Mechanic or even Ram Man, where they're just, they all have interesting gimmicks. Triclops, you know, Fisto. A name I cannot say without laughing.
Yeah,
You know,
Fisto has become a bit of a meme
a
over the
a
years.
bit of a meme. I don't care for what they did with this battle armor He-Man, if I'm being honest. I mean, I think it's cool that you can replace the chest things with him, but the old school one where you tapped it and it would change was
Yeah,
what like made playtime with them so much more interesting
right.
because
And
like the as you can see in this picture, like the way they have it is he's got this chest cavity thing here and you can replace it with various types of damage. But what it used to be was a wheel inside of him and you would
yeah,
tap it and it would skip to the next thing.
and honestly, the reason they did it that way for this line is because it just wasn't cost effective to make him with a wheel inside of him,
Right.
like they did the first time. So they did, you know, the closest thing they could do without making the figure cost $80 or something.
Exactly. And then they did something really clever too when they introduced the evil horde. Once they realized that the toy line was starting to lose a little bit of its steam, they introduced a whole new faction who are more evil than Skeletor.
Yeah,
Like Hordak. I mean, it says it right here: ruthless leader of the evil horde. Like, holy shit.
mm-hmm.
And he was awesome. He was such a cool villain.
And for some reason, I always loved the evil horde figures. Like they were some of my favorite ones. Like um Montana there,
Yeah,
like not that version obviously, but the original one from the original line.
sure.
My one of my favorite figures of the whole thing
Right.
because he had the action feature where he had a switch in his back and you push up
And
and his
his
eyeballs
eyeballs
would pop
popped
out.
up. Yeah. You know. And Modulok is just overkill. Just fucking overkill.
I never had him, but I
I
always wanted him.
Yeah, same. I never had one either, but like, again, like I told you, I had that buddy who had the fairly rich family, so he had one, so I got to play with him every now and again, but like there was just a ton of really wild things. Now here's where we start to get into like the later stuff where I didn't have much of these, but
I
I did have Rio Blast.
I didn't have a ton of these either, but I did have the two Stone Warriors there, the
Mm.
Rockon and Stondar that folded down into rocks.
Now we're both fairly certain that those came about because Rock Lords became a thing, right?
I believe so. Yes.
So Rock Lords were like Transformers, but instead of turning into robots, or instead of being robots that turned into like vehicles or dinosaurs and shit like that, they just turned into rocks. They were weird, but I kind of loved them. I had a handful as a child. Um, you know, they were
Yeah,
they were
and
interesting.
when it got to these Snake Men, I didn't have any of them except for I had Cobra Khan. He was technically a Snake Man, and his thing was you could fill him with water and push his head down and make him squirt water out of his mouth.
Wild. Also, the name it was it it repeat the name one more time.
Cobra Khan.
Cobra Khan. That's I mean, come on, that's so fucking close to Kubla Khan.
Yeah,
And I loved the naming tradition with the villains, just adding like an OR at the end.
right.
Ninjor. Where's some other ones? Ratlore, Tongue
Rattler,
Lashor, Dragstore.
Webstorm
Yeah,
was another.
right. Grizzlore,
Grizzlor,
Spikeor,
another one of my
Stinkor.
favorites.
You know,
Yeah,
shit was fucking hilarious. It
yeah.
really was. Um. All right, so let's talk and let's. I did have a couple of questions I wanted to toss at you. And one of the bigger ones that I was thinking about and actually thinking quite a bit about today, because I don't think we've ever actually had this discussion before, so this would be interesting for me to find out. What's your, or maybe I do already know this. I think I have an idea what the answer is, but I'm going to let you answer anyway. What's your, like, holy grail? You know, like what's the toy that you would like to have out of this series more than anything?
Now, are we talking specifically the original vintage figures, or
It's your holy grail. It's whatever.
all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so as a way to cap off the classics line, which is what we're looking at here.
I think I'm past the classics at this point. I think
Oh, oh,
this is
maybe you are,
the
but
heroic warriors. I don't know.
but the classics line ran for years and years and years, and they ended up releasing just about every figure and every thing that you could possibly want. So to end it off, uh, Super Seven did this amazing Snake Mountain, this huge, gigantic Snake Mountain playset, and it is the coolest thing you've ever seen. So, you might be asking yourself, well, you're the biggest He Man nerd I know.
Holy
Why
shit.
wouldn't you get one?
Well,
That right
I was
there
gonna
is
say
why.
the answer is on the screen. Holy shit!
Now,
Oh my god!
now that's right now priceless because this thing was released a while back.
Right.
But even if you pre-ordered it, I think it was $600 or $700, and I just didn't have the money to throw at it.
Yeah, as most of us wouldn't.
And even if by some odd chance I had come up with the money, I definitely don't have the space to display it because it's gigantic.
That's wild.
But if we're talking, if there's one thing I could ever have, regardless of any other factors, this would be it because it's amazing.
All right, yeah. Here's one that gives you an idea of about how big it is. That's fucking wild. Yeah, that's huge. I like how it even says approximate scale. Yeah, it's fucking huge.
Yeah, and the in that picture there, that Castle Grayskull that the person is holding,
Right.
that's the Castle Grayskull that is basically the companion piece to the Snake Mountain,
Right.
and it itself was big, like really big, but the Snake Mountain just dwarfs it.
Holy mother of shit. Yeah, this thing's gigantic. That's cool as hell, though. I don't know if I've ever actually seen this. You know, like I remember when I was a kid, the again, the rich friend I had,
Mm-hmm.
he had the classic Snake Mountain, which was, fairly sizable, not quite this big, but like it was about on par with
With the
the
Gray
Gray
Skull, yeah.
Skull, yeah. Look at this collection. This is kind of cool.
Yeah. So, and the original Snake Mountain was great because um it had a feature where it came with a microphone and you could talk into it and you could make the face on Snake Mountain talk and it would move.
Right.
I never had the original Snake Mountain either. So that's kind of the other reason why this one would be my holy grail, because
Sure.
I never had the original one either.
Yeah, I get that. I get that for sure. Yeah, that's definitely a pretty good look, man. He's this guy. He's even got the movie ones, the motion picture guys.
Yeah,
You know, that's
those
pretty.
are great too.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. You know, like I've never been a huge fan of the motion picture. I love me some Dolph Lundgren, and I will admit that Frank Langella was amazing casting as Skeletor. Like honestly, like the fucking realness that he brought to that character, who is this
Like,
just a fucking goofy kids cartoon villain, and he played it up like it was the best role he's ever gotten, and
and
he
and
kills it.
and he will say when he's asked that it's one of his favorite roles that he's ever had. Um, but if I were an adult in '86 and I heard, that the Masters of the Universe movie was coming out and they said Frank Langella was playing Skeletor, I would have thought, what?
Oh,
That
here, look at this.
that doesn't seem right. But he did a
Will
great
help
job.
explain one rather un-Langella-like role. Let this be our final battle! So if you chose your roles carefully, why do Skeletor, Masters of the Universe?
Oh, why not? That's one of my favorite parts.
Really?
Oh, I loved that part. My son was 4 years old, and he was He-Man running around with a sword. And they offered me Skeletor. I couldn't resist. I couldn't wait to play him.
He played evil again in 1993's Dave.
He played evil again in 1993's Dave. Like, fucking really? You know, but man, he was like, look how like the mask and everything, it was perfection.
Yeah.
They made him look so good.
And the Drew Struzan poster art for that movie is fucking fantastic.
Mm. Wait, which one are we talking about?
We're not talking about the one with the blue. We're talking about the other one.
This one?
Yeah. Yes.
That is pretty good. A battle fought in the stars now comes to Earth. I mean, he wasn't. Okay, whatever. You know, and I mean, and honestly, the movie had its faults. You know, for sure, there were some aspects of it that were not great. Dolph wasn't bad casting for He-Man. You know, like a muscle-bound blonde beefcake. You know, but there's no Prince Adam, which is fucking weird because that's like a major part of the lore, which I always thought was really weird.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and like they took the movie really seriously, but in a goofy way, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
But like, why not have the characters from the show? Like, there's a couple of them, you know, Man at Arms and He-Man, Skeletor, yada yada. But you know, there were other, like, why no, like why would you not have Orko in it? Even if you changed him, he's still important. You know, there's no Battle Cat or Cringer. You know, which I guess is fine. I imagine it would be pretty tough to wrangle, you know, a fucking tiger. But you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought they made some weird
Especially,
choices.
for Canon Films,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You know.
who was, I believe they were kind of. Well, I know for a fact when they were making the movie, they ran out of money, and that's why the end of the movie had to be changed, and why it was shot the way that it was, because they didn't have any money.
Right. Which is, I mean, not all that surprising. When this came out, you know, like this sort of style. I mean, I would say this style was kind of on its way out, but it really wasn't. 1987. You know,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be until the '90s when this really died away, and I don't know. I think it's about time they tried to make another one.
And
Yeah.
you keep hearing, you've been hearing for years that there's a new Masters of the Universe movie coming, and you'll hear some casting tidbits like um most recently there was going to be one, and this guy Noah Centino or something similar to that was going to be playing He-Man,
Right.
and then but no matter what it is or who it is, it just never ends up happening. They just can't seem to come up with something that works.
Mm. Yeah, it's a shame. Really is.
But I mean, we got what we got, and even though it's cheesy as shit, I love it. You know, did I wish back then that it was a little closer to what I was familiar with? Yeah, but I still like what we got. So, and
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. I'm with you on that one. Um, so where does your collection stand today? Like, what do you think you've got? Like, and I mean, we're not, I don't care about numbers. I'm just, just interested.
so, so like I said, I still have my original Grayskull, which uh, that's the only piece from the original line that I do kind of have on display. But
Hmm.
other than that, um, I have literally a couple of the classics figures. I have Skeletor and Faker,
I love
and
Faker.
those are the only ones from that line that I ended up getting. And then I didn't really start getting any more until the last few years when they released uh, what they call the Origins line,
Right.
Masters of the Universe Origins. Those are, like I said earlier, closer to what the original line was, and you know they were cheap enough, so I've been buying those, and I've got several of them. I've got probably almost as many of those now as what I had of the original line back in the day.
Nice.
But but besides those, I've got there's some companies that do little mini ones. Like there's a company called the Loyal Subjects that did a line of them, and I have several of those as well. And then there's some that are called Eternia minis
Right.
that come in little plastic cases that look like either Grayskull or Snake Mountain. I have a few of those.
Very cool.
And other than that, I've got some pops and some books, and I mean it's quite a bit of stuff, but it's not.
Yeah, me and you
It's not.
actually have one of the same pops.
Yeah,
If you see behind me, this big one, the biggest one there is, you can't see it because it's not facing the camera, and frankly, it would be too much of a hassle for me to pull it out right now because it's got all sorts of stuff on top of it. But that's my giant beast man, which H also has. I don't have a
yeah.
lot. That's the only He-Man pop I have. Um, most of my pops are in the back end. We've got all my Dragon Ball Z pops, and on the front end, like these 8 closest ones that are right here to here. Those are all Golden Girls. With the bottom row is their regular outfits, and then the top row is them in their bowling shirts. Um, and then I've got a Hulk Buster, Iron Man. But yeah, I don't. That's it. That's mostly that's mostly all I have. I've got a couple of other toys, but mostly what I have is Pops at this point. You know,
Yeah.
and a lot of that honestly is because I had an ex-girlfriend who that's all she did was collect Pops, and you know, like whenever we would exchange gifts, more often than not, that's what I'd end up getting would be another Pop. So that's pretty much how
Yeah,
I.
I've got quite a few pups now myself. It's funny the pups because it my pop collecting started out with Masters of the Universe when they first released the first series of those.
Right, right.
I I was able to find uh the four that I wanted, which was He-Man, Skeletor, Spikor, and Hordak. I was able to find those at conventions back in about 2012 time frame. I want to say
Mm-hmm.
I was able to find them for about $10 a piece,
It's not bad.
and it's funny because I got those, and then like I got I think four other pops. I couldn't remember exactly what they were, but I had like eight pops for the longest time, and then thanks to a buddy of ours who uh, kind of got me jump started with buying more. He sent me like four of them,
Yeah, because
and
well, that was because he was becoming obsessed with collecting Pops, and he wanted everybody else to be as well.
yeah,
It's the same guy
so
who sent me the Beast Man. He sent you the Beast Man as well.
yes, so he sent me like four like a couple years ago, and I don't know if exactly if that was the catalyst, but it certainly helped, and I just started buying more pops from that point on, and I've got probably 35 of them now. They're not they're not all Masters of the Universe,
No,
but I'd I'd say about 10 of them
right.
are Masters of the Universe, and then I've got a bunch of Marvel ones, and then a bunch of other random ones. Like I got a couple of They Live, and like the horror ones that our buddy sent me.
Right, right.
Uh, Jason, Freddy, and Michael Myers, and then I've got like some music ones. Like I've got Weird Al from the Fat Video,
Nice.
and I've got the Megadeth mascot Vic Rattlehead,
Yeah,
and yeah,
yeah, I would say that the only one that I have that I think is like really cool is not even an official Pop. It was a custom design thing
yeah.
that they ran a fairly, I want to say a fairly limited run. I don't know exactly how many. I you know whatever, but it's a Stan Lee, and he's got the Infinity Gauntlet on. It's pretty cool looking. You know,
I do like that. I think I want to say that that was official, but maybe it wasn't.
the one I have is definitely not official.
Hmm.
Yeah, everything about the box is wrong.
Ah,
You know, yeah, it's slightly too big. It's weirdly proportioned. It's definitely not an official thing, or at least not the one I have is. You know, but if they
I
did do an official one at some point, then that's awesome. But it's not what I have.
I see. But yeah, as far as the pops go, like I'm trying to like not. I'm trying to buy fewer of them these days because I'm honestly running out of places to put them.
Yeah. Well, that's the irony is I've got nothing but space, and I just don't have any money. So
Yeah.
you know, so go to buy me a coffee and send us some money so that we can buy Pops.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to.
If you want to, of course.
And also, Sweet Delicious RC, if you want to call us up and make it official, we're open to that.
And I did post a thing on in the Facebook group or page that if we get that page up to 10,000 likes, I will get an RC Cola logo tattooed on my arm. Right here, I've got the spot just for it. You know, it's the exact same spot where CM Punk has his Pepsi tattoo. Shit would be hilarious.
And hey, I didn't say it on the Facebook page, but if we do get up there to 10,000 likes, maybe I'll get it too.
Nice. It'd be the most ridiculous tattoo in the history of ridiculous. And this is coming from a guy who almost exclusively has ridiculous tattoos.
You do have some ridiculous tattoos.
I do. It's fun. Honestly, I didn't really have much more to talk about. I knew today was going to be a short episode because we were just talking about He-Man, and the He-Man toys.
Well, I mean, the truth is, we could go on because, like, I could talk about the different lines. We could talk about the different cartoons.
Yeah, but we'll save that for He-Man Guys Part 2.
Which will come at some point.
At some point, we've been trying to keep it, doing something a little bit different each week. We did wrestling, we did video games, we did a movie. Now we're talking toys, and we'll keep the cycle going. So when we get to, we named this series Nerds Love Toys. So this is Nerds Love Toys Volume 1, He-Man Guys. And then, and who knows what. And honestly, the next one will probably be about Pops because, frankly, they're kind of the biggest toy line out there right now. And I'm sure there are plenty of people who want to talk about their Pop collections. So, I'm sure that'll probably happen at some point.
The main thing with this show, I think, is we want to talk about stuff that we want to talk about.
Right.
But we also want to keep it interesting for anybody that listen. We don't want to bore the shit out of you guys out there.
Right. And then the other thing as well is that I don't necessarily only want to talk, like when we have guests on, I don't necessarily want to just talk to people who are like famous. I want to talk to people who are obsessive. So like if like I know a guy who is probably the biggest Godzilla fan I've ever met. And that's saying something for me because I'm one of the biggest Godzilla fans I've ever met. And we're going to have him on to talk about some Godzilla stuff in the future. And then, we're probably going to talk to some like indie music producers, to talk about like what it's like making music nowadays and like people's obsession with music. And we'll probably talk record collecting at some point. And there's literally 9 trillion fucking movies out there we can talk about.
Yeah, we're gonna do more movies. We're gonna, talk a lot more about all this nerdy shit.
Exactly.
We just gotta figure out what we're gonna talk about and when we're gonna do it.
Yep, exactly. We'll get there. But on that note, we're going to wrap it up. So thanks anybody who is actually watching. I don't keep numbers up, so I don't know how many, if anybody actually is. But it's all good. We appreciate you, checking us out on YouTube. If you didn't check us live on Twitch, we are live on Twitch every Sunday, 7 p.m. You can go to Facebook, and we've got a page there to keep up with us on whatever we announce new episodes and post silly stuff, and we've got the Buy Me a Coffee if you wanna support the channel. I would say don't subscribe to us on Twitch. Like I appreciate like if you wanted to, that's cool. I would say don't. I would say go to Buy Me a Coffee and do it there. You have more flexibility on it. You're not required to do it every month. But if you do join a membership on there, you'll get exclusive content. And, you know, and maybe once we start getting some names rolling in there, we'll do a little thing at the end of each episode where we go through, and everybody who's, you know, tipped us gets a little shout out, and, you know, all that fun stuff. And of course, you know, it's not an episode of Alt Nerd Obsessive without the tasty, crisp, clean flavor of RC Cola. Not sponsored.
Delicious.
Not sponsored. You know.
And
I feel like
I don't
I'm.
know if,
I don't
know if you want to mention too, that we also have that group for contributors.
Well, that's a private group for contributors, but
It is private.
yeah. But if anybody was interested in being on the show, reach out to me or H directly through Facebook, and we can you know, we can definitely talk to you or add you to the group. And we have a Discord that I will post an invite link up to on our page on Facebook. I am going to create an exclusive Discord just for backers, but you know, we don't have any backers yet, so I'm not worrying about that right now. But I figure that'll be a place where people can go, and you know, we can do exclusive movie nights and stuff like that, and you know, for anybody who's interested in that sort of thing. We'll probably do free movie nights too at some point.
Yeah, and now that we do have the Facebook page, facebook.com/altnerdpodcast. Look it up if you haven't seen it already. Now that we do have that, go on there and comment on our posts and tell us if there's any nerdy shit that you want to hear us talk about.
Right, because between the two of us, our interests pretty much run the gamut. So if there's anything in particular that's nerdy shit that you want to hear us talk about, we'd be happy to oblige. Anyway, on that note, let's wrap things up. I've been Mo. With me has been H. And stay nerdy.
See ya.